So you want to build a blaster, someone who dishes out serious damage from a distance. This role is extremely fun to play in combat because you sort of become the de facto lead for reliable damage or big booms, and that depends on which type of blaster you build. Anyway, welcome back to D&D War Room. I'll be your advisor, Fenris Agor. Today we are going over the fourth of my 5 combat roles. If you haven't seen my video explaining the 5 combat roles, you can check it out here. Peer into the magic scroll before you. I will lay out the best tactics, classes, and feats associated with the blaster. Disclaimer: as always, we will not be going into any subclasses and just looking at the base classes. The feat selection is based on how it affects combat and the role of the blaster. So in this case, I will consider damage output, as that is core to this role. However, I won't be number crunching and instead explaining the benefits as it relates to the party and not the individual. With that out of the way, let's get into it. We need to discuss tactics first to understand why certain classes and feats are great for your blaster build. Much of this role can be split into two groups, the multi-attack blasters and the AOE blasters. And I think there's an argument to be made that these are two separate roles. However, I disagree, as the main job of dishing out damage is shared between both. So let's discuss the shared tactics first. You're going to want to try to keep at least 30 feet and preferably a beefy ally away from you and the nearest enemy. You're also going to want to avoid melee at all costs. You're generally squishy, and without a certain feat, this means you'll be at disadvantage on your attack rolls. Cover is your friend, so be sure to check up on it at the end of each of your turns. You can break up your movement, step out of cover, attack, and then move right back into it. Also, if you aren't in melee range and enemies can't reach you to get in melee range on their turn, then consider going prone after attacking. This will make all incoming range attacks be made at disadvantage. This does cost some of your move speed on the following turn, but as a blaster you won't really need movement to reach out and touch somebody. Looking at multi-attack blasters, you're going to want to focus on hitting enemies that are locked into combat with your allies. By focusing them down, you're going to reduce the enemy's action economy as fast as possible. You should also prioritize hitting enemy casters. You have multiple attacks, so you can force them to make multiple con saves, and that is game changing. Here's where I say advantage is good. Yeah, I know, that's obvious, but it's especially good for multi-attack blasters, because your chance to crit is already high, and that doubles. So look for ways to get this. Certain subclasses have abilities that grant this. Looking at you, Samurai Jack. But generally, having the enemy not see you is the easiest way for a ranged character to get advantage on their attacks. AOE blasters can really care less about advantage, and that's because you aren't really making attack rolls, but at least you're almost guaranteed to do damage. As an AOE blaster, getting high on the turn order is paramount, because the top of the first round is generally when the enemies are the most clustered. You really want to maximize the targets hit by your AOE, and this is less about hurting the boss and more about outright killing the minions. So if you can't hit all of them, focus the minions to get them out of the turn order. Now let's look at some examples of how you would operate both a multi-attack blaster and an AoE blaster. Alright, now let's take a look at our multi-attack blaster. Here we can see that he is more than 30 feet away from the enemies, and if you look, he has an ally in melee with them. So his first thing that he's going to want to do is to fire at the enemy in melee with his ally. And this is going to help get them out of the turn order and protect his ally, sort of. After that, he's going to get into cover, and he's going to want to lay prone. Now, if any enemy is able to get a shot on him, it'll be made at disadvantage. And because of the distance that he is in cover, the enemies won't be able to run and attack him without dashing on that turn, unless they have more than 30 feet of movement. So be aware of what you're fighting. Now, if we want to get advantage, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have our blaster move out to where he can attack, and he's going to cast a spell like, say, Darkness. By casting Darkness on himself, if he has an ability such as Devil Sight, he's going to be able to see through this darkness, but the enemies won't be able to see him. And what that means is that he's going to get advantage on attacking them, and they will have disadvantage on attacking him. So overall, it's a great offensive and defensive tactic to employ. So here we have our AoE blaster, and they're in the perfect scenario. They've gotten first up on the turn order, and none of the enemies have moved yet. They have the opportunity to hit these enemies with a fireball, the best. And that's going to be 20-foot radius. So they're going to look, they're going to check each enemy's distance, kind of determine how many enemies they can get with this hit. Now, one thing they're kind of learning is that they can hit two of the stronger enemies, and they likely won't be able to kill them all, or they can hit one of the stronger enemies and three of the minions, and they have a much greater chance at killing those minions. So, what they're going to do is place that fireball in a position where it gets the most amount of enemies or has the most kill potential. So, in this situation, they're going to hit that boss enemy, and they're also going to hit the three zombies and knock them out. All right, so now that you've seen that, let's look at my three class choices for the blaster. First up, we have the fighter. They boast moderate HP, access to all weapons and armor, so they get good AC and their pick as far as weapon choices. They get the most attacks with the opportunity to burst using their action surge ability. They also get the most ASIs, and by extension, the most feats. This style of blaster doesn't need many feats to be effective, but can really round out any weakness associated with their role. Next up, we have the Warlock. Likely no surprise because of how good Eldritch Blast is. This cantrip can keep up with the number of attacks fighters get, and when you combine that with Eldritch Invocations, you can increase damage and add a push. This makes a really solid base for a multi-attack blaster. They also get access to spell slots, which are admittedly limited, but they recharge on a short rest. And they get spells like Hex, which can stack more damage per hit. Later on, they'll get access to Shadow of Moil, which is essentially auto advantage. You throw in AoE abilities like Hunger of Hadar, and you've got an excellent blaster without looking into subclasses or multiclasses. Last and maybe the most controversial, we have the Sorcerer. Yes, I'm aware the Wizard has more spells and a subclass that comes with Sculpt spells so they can avoid hitting allies with the beloved and dreaded Fireball, but we aren't looking at subclasses, and base Sorcerer, in my opinion, is just better due to meta magic. Specifically, Empowered Spell to increase damage by rerolling those low die, and Subtle Spell to avoid getting counterspelled while trying to roast the entire room. Careful Spell is situational. Maybe if you were using Hypnotic Pattern and had an ally in the mix, it would be worth it. But if I only have two meta magics to choose from as an AoE blaster, I'm going with Subtle Spell and Empowered. That's going to bring us to our feats. More so than the other roles, these feats are really dependent on the class and or style of character. So I'll give two choices for each of my classes, with the caveat that they also work for similarly styled characters of other classes, and I'll give one feat with a universal use. So for the fighter or weapon-based blaster, the first feat is Sharpshooter. This is going to let you sit back and fire from afar, ignoring enemy cover. And if you picked up the archery fighting style, you'll mitigate some of the penalty from Sharpshooter, making it more reliable for you to get that plus 10 damage. My second choice is Piercer. It's a half feat, so you can round out that dex score, and you'll get to re-roll the damage die on one attack a round. And your criticals get a damage boost. It's extremely powerful, especially when you consider that most of your range damage is going to be piercing anyway. For the Warlock or Cantrip Blaster, I recommend Warcaster. You get advantage on concentration checks, which is good, and if you're holding weapons, which I wouldn't expect you to be, but if you are, you'll still be able to cast your spells. But the real key that you're looking for is the ability to cast spells on opportunity attacks. This means that you can cast an Eldritch Blast that hits 4 times if somebody tries to move past you. That's downright insane. My second choice is Spell Sniper. It's a cantrip sharpshooter without the damage boost. It also gives you another cantrip. Your best bet is grabbing one from the list that shares your primary stat, because the cantrip will use that stat. The use of this feat really varies based on the map size your DM uses and if the enemies use cover often. For the Sorcerer or AoE Blasters, I recommend Alert. The increase to initiative means you can devastate that mob before they disperse or intermingle with your allies. My next choice is best with the Sorcerer, but it's useful to all, and that's Metamagic Adept. You get access to 2 or more metamagic options, and if you are a Sorcerer, here's where you're going to take Careful, Quickened, or Twin Spell, and you get 2 more sorcery points. If you aren't a Sorcerer, then the 2 sorcery points will likely be used for Subtle Spell. That should be your number one metamagic that you choose, and that's going to help you avoid counterspells, and it's going to have uses outside of combat. And my last recommendation for any blaster is Crossbow Expert. And what you're really looking for here is going to be the second bullet point. Things are already pretty bad if you're in melee, so getting disadvantage on your attack rolls isn't what you want tacked onto that. If you have a desire to make a crossbow build, this is an obvious choice, and I'm sure you can find dozens of videos raving about how good this is with dual hand crossbows. So, that was the blaster, the party's glass cannon. Playing a blaster means being the party's #1 source of consistent damage, someone the team can depend on to dispatch their foes, and in that, a lot of roleplay options emerge. You can be the hotshot gunslinger full of swagger, confident that he can take down anyone in the room, the mad mage who loves explosions and pushing their magics to the limits, or the stoic yet graceful archer delivering swift death to their enemies. No matter how you play it, everybody loves having a blaster on their team. So I hope these tips help you help them. If you like this, please leave a like. If you think I missed anything, comment below to help me and your fellow players out. And lastly, if you enjoy D&D content that combines roleplay with optimization, consider subscribing. If you're interested in more party roles, you can check out the controller or supporter video posted above, and be on the lookout for the skirmisher, which I should be dropping shortly. Once again, thank you for watching.